Baltimore Ravens have their home opener in week 2 against the Las Vegas Raiders. This is the game preview episode. We're diving into all the advantages for both sides, some weaknesses from both sides, give some overall game thoughts and predictions, and some final score predictions, all after some words from the greatest linebacker in the history of the game.
Ravens flock. The flock rundown is the place to be. My man Ryan has been a lifelong Ravens fan since he was born. The flock rundown. Nothing gets better than waking up and wondering how high we can fly. Tune in.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.
Appreciate you, Ray. What's up, Ravens fans? My name is Ryan, and welcome back to another episode of the Flock Rundown. This is the game preview episode, Ravens versus Raiders this Sunday, home opener for Baltimore. I love doing the game preview episodes. These are my favorite episodes of the week outside of watching the game and then talking about it. The weather looks pretty good at this point, so there should be no weather issues at all. Both teams are coming off of a loss, so that is definitely important. You know, somebody's going to stay 0-2. Diving into the injury reports, they don't look too bad. The Ravens are going to be without Nate Wiggins, their first round cornerback that they just drafted, because he was in a car accident that Harbaugh just announced. We didn't really know that until he just confirmed it. There was no statement put out or anything, but I guess on Wednesday, Nate was in a car accident, has a minor neck injury. They're going to hold him out this week, but Harbaugh said he's fine. It's nothing serious.
Nate was in a car accident a couple days ago. They were kind of working through it. Looks like he's not going to be able to make it to the game, so he'll be out for this game with that. What question is he? He's fine. He's healthy. He's fine. But he's just not going to be able to play.
So be safe out there, guys. We did get some good news that Kyle Van Noy returned to practice. I was assuming, even though he returned to practice, that he was still not going to play this week. But he said he feels good and he's optimistic that he's going to play this Sunday, which is kind of crazy, but I'm glad. Hopefully he is out there. If not, then we'll probably see him next week. I knew that it was good news that they weren't putting him on IR, because when we first got news about this orbital injury, it sounded like it could be like season ending. But they didn't put him on IR, so I was like, okay, there's too many days stacking up here. If he was going to miss any long-term time, anything above 4 weeks, you're going to put the guy on IR. So the fact they didn't do that was a little bit of a sign, and then now he's already back at practice, said he feels good, so we might see Kyle Van Noy Sunday. Nate Wiggins is out. The only other question mark, I guess, is Adisa Isaac. I'm not sure if he's going to go or not, but no real big players are out for the Ravens, and the Raiders looks like it's the same scenario. They got a longer injury report, but a lot of full practices, so it doesn't seem like any key guys are going to be out. If you're a Raiders fan and I'm dead wrong about that, then let me know what key player is going to be out in the comments, but I think that the Raiders are fairly healthy. The Ravens are pretty healthy heading into this game. So with that, let's dive into the actual game. Let's start with the Ravens defense and what they have to do to kind of cause the Raiders offense some trouble. I think that the key to that is pressuring Minshew, making him uncomfortable. This is not Mahomes that we just faced. I'm not saying Minshew's an awful player, but it's not Patrick Mahomes. We barely blitzed Patrick Mahomes. We were still getting pressure with a 4-man rush, but we weren't bringing a lot of extra guys, because elite players like that take advantage of you blitzing. They can recognize it. They can change their routes and get the ball out a lot faster to an open guy, or Mahomes is great at escaping pressure as well. So I don't think we're going to get a ton of that with Gardner Minshew. I think you might see the blitz dialed up a little bit more, and if we can make him really uncomfortable and consistently get pressure, I think that that's going to slow the Raiders offense down tremendously. Now, we have seen Gardner Minshew beat us before with the Colts, and that wasn't necessarily on our defense. It's not like Gardner Minshew lit us up in that game. It was a sloppy rain game. Our offense could barely score and get going. So it was a different variables in that game. But Minshew has done it before, and if you give him a lot of time, he can sling it. He's an aggressive thrower. He's got a good arm, and he's got weapons, mainly Devontae Adams, and then newly drafted rookie tight end Brock Bowers are leading that receiving core, and threats that I think our secondary needs to be focused on. Those are definitely their biggest threats. Brock Bowers is no joke, man. I think he's going to be an elite tight end in this league for a long time. and he's already off to a hot start last week. He was highly targeted. Davante Adams, we know what he brings to the table. He's one of the greatest wide receivers that we've seen in this decade. So you don't want to give Gardner Minshew in this offense time to hit those weapons downfield. I think that getting pressure on Minshew is key. Obviously, stopping the run game. I don't think that they're bringing a super strong run game to the table. We usually stop the run pretty well. I think that every game, the key is to try and make a team one-dimensional. So you're always going to try and stop the run game. But I don't think the Raiders' biggest threat is their run game. I'm more worried about them creating some mismatches on defense like we saw last week with our linebackers and whatnot, and then Minshew having time to actually get the ball to these guys. I think that is the biggest fear when it comes to the Raiders offense versus our defense, but I expect the defense to play better than they did last week. They had a lot of mistakes last week, a lot of miscommunication. I think that they're going to shore a lot of that up and have a nice rebound week. I also expect Zach Orr to dial the blitz pressure up a bit more than he did against the Chiefs last week. Moving to the other side of the ball for both teams, one thing I'm extremely worried about is the Ravens' offensive line, this young offensive line versus a very talented and experienced Raiders defensive line. You got Christian Wilkins on the inside. You got Crosby on the edge and inside. He comes inside as well. He's moved everywhere. And they do a lot of disguise blitzes and kind of run a similar defense, at least on the defensive line, as the Ravens did last year, where you don't exactly know who's coming. Shout out to Cole Jackson. He had a full breakdown where he showed some film on this as well. The Raiders do an incredible job at disguising their looks, and that can be really confusing for any offensive line, but especially young offensive linemen that haven't seen a lot of these looks where you think you know who your man is. You know, okay, there's 4 guys coming, we got it blocked, and then your D tackle's dropping back to cover the short crosser route, and you got a linebacker blitzing from the edge that you didn't expect. Now you got your lineman double blocking one guy and having a free late rusher come around. So they do a lot of that stuff, and that is very concerning for the Ravens offensive line. I know our offensive line is going to continue to grow, but the Chiefs didn't run as much disguised looks as I think the Raiders will, and the Raiders have just as much talent on that D-line as the Chiefs, if not more. I would say this is my biggest concern of this game is that Raiders D-line game wrecking. You know, Crosby getting a strip sack or just late sacks to blow up third down plays, and you got to go 3 and out and punt the ball, and like just a lot of drive stallers because the D-line is disruptive. We've seen this with TJ Watt and Myles Garrett before, and Max Crosby's up there, man. Like he's no joke. This is the real deal. And then you got a superstar tackle, in my opinion, and Christian Wilkins on the inside. So that is that's concerning. I definitely am not confident about our O-line handling this situation, but I think they can handle it enough that we still are on top. It's not like every single play is about to get blown up. We just need to limit those game-wrecking plays where you get a strip sack and things like that, turn the ball over, the Raiders get a quick, easy score. That's how you keep the Raiders in the game. That's how you keep the game close, and then who knows who can win, you know? The Ravens are bringing an overall more talented roster to the table. It's hard to argue that. So the Ravens, on paper, should win this game. I mean, they're one of the highest favored teams this week in the NFL, so there's no reason the Ravens should really lose this game, but it only takes a couple turnovers, a couple game-wrecking plays from a star pass rusher to keep this game tight, and then who knows? So that's why this is my biggest concern, especially with a young offensive line who hasn't seen a lot of these disguises and hasn't had to make those instant, quick decisions. It's hard to figure that out. The Ravens did an incredible job and led the league in sacks last year, doing exactly the same thing, bringing a bunch of disguised looks and pressures, and it just confuses offense. It's a nightmare. You got a free rusher coming all the time because the linemen don't exactly know who to pick up because who they thought they were going to pick up is not actually who's coming. So we'll see how it plays out. Hopefully the Ravens offensive line improves and their communication is strong. It'll definitely help being at home. We're not going to have to deal with crowd noise on offense. I think that they'll be able to communicate a lot better. And then obviously we got a strong running back and quarterback in Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson that can make a lot of plays happen for themselves as well. Speaking of Derrick Henry and Lamar and this run game, we got to run the ball. I think that's the key to a successful season, not only this game. J.K. Dobbins lit the Raiders up on the ground last week. Now, that is a little misleading because if you watch the game, the Raiders did a pretty good job of containing the run game overall, but J.K. got loose on a couple big runs, which really just threw the stats out of whack. So I don't think the Raiders' run defense is quite as bad as it looks on paper when you just look at the Chargers' rushing stats, but there's a lot more to deal with than the Chargers are bringing to the table because Lamar Jackson ran 16 times for 122 yards last week. I don't think he's going to run nearly that much. For one, he was sore and missed practice on Monday, and that's just not a sustainable formula for this team or for Lamar. You can't be our leading rusher in carries and yards every single week. You're not going to probably make it through the entire season. So I expect Lamar to run a little bit less. It doesn't mean Lamar is not going to run or the threat of Lamar is not going to be there because it will be every single play. I think Lamar is going to still run, but take that 16 carries down to like 6 to 9, somewhere in there, and then give Derrick Henry 20 carries. I think that is a lot more of a sustainable, balanced formula. But regardless, we need to run Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry's not the issue in the run game. It's play calling, for one, to get him the ball. And for another, the offensive line needs to run block way better. Their pass blocking has been pretty solid, actually. Their run blocking is atrocious. So we need to improve run blocking, open up a little bit more holes and lanes for Derrick Henry. I think that you will see that improve week after week as the season goes on, and I'm hoping that we see a big improvement this week, especially being at home. You're not going to have to deal with any communication issues. I just really think a successful run game, especially early on in the game, is going to open up everything else. You're going to be able to run play action all day long. You're going to have stuff down the field, one-on-one matchups everywhere you look. This is the formula for the Ravens to win. Run early, establish the run, ground and pound, chew up some clock, use the play action pass off of a strong run game to hit Bateman and Zay downfield, exploit the shorter mismatches with Andrews and Likely, and then get back to running the ball late in the game when you have a 2-possession lead. You pound the rock until the clock runs out. I think that is the Ravens winning formula game after game. Now, is every game going to go like that? No, we're going to be down like we were in the Chiefs, and you're probably not going to be able to run quite as much. But a game like this against the Raiders, establish the run early, feed Henry often, use that success to open up the defense a little bit, get some play action success. I think there'll be a lot of openings downfield. The Ravens are going to be able to throw the ball, but off of the run, and then get back to running the ball late in the game to put the game away. That is the dream formula. I think that is our identity. Run first to set up the pass, run late to close out the game. If we can get that going every week, we're going to be a really hard team to beat because our defense is going to hold teams to a lower amount of points. I already know that. Nobody's going to be lighting our defense up. If anything, the Chiefs probably lit us up more than we're going to see all season long, and that was only 27 points with blown coverages and wide reverses and just things that we usually contain that we did not contain, and miscommunication that we aren't used to having, and I don't think is going to be a normal thing that we're seeing week after week. So the Ravens are really set up to win this game if they run the ball. Staying on the Ravens offense, another interesting dynamic to watch in this game is the involvement of Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. Last week, obviously, Isaiah Likely went absolutely nuclear and had 9 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown, almost had a second touchdown. And Mark wasn't that involved, but if you went back and watched the tape, I even dropped a full episode on this. Mark was double teamed throughout that entire game, and Isaiah Likely was not getting much attention at all. So it'll be interesting to see how the Raiders play it. Do they throw a lot of attention back towards Mark Andrews and then let Isaiah Likely just have mismatch city all over the field and kind of go off again? Or is it going to be more of an even balance where they're throwing some more attention to Isaiah? That's going to open more opportunity for Mark. Whoever has a one-on-one matchup in that situation is probably going to win it. Mark Andrews is an elite tight end. Isaiah Likely is an elite tight end. They're going to win their battles. But who's double teamed? Who's getting the attention? Who's getting the focus? That'll be interesting to watch. I don't exactly know how the Raiders are going to play it, but there's a bigger dynamic now that Isaiah Likely is the threat, the known threat that he is after he went off like he did last week. I don't think that you can just ignore him. So I expect Andrews to get a bit more involved this week because I think the Raiders are going to have to put some focus on Isaiah Likely. You're not going to be able to just leave him out there on an island with a linebacker play after play. And I think that will then open up some more opportunity for Mark Andrews. I do expect them both to be out on the field in that 12 personnel often, especially if we're running the ball because it's such a disguised run look. That's how you bring both of them out there. You run the ball often and then play action pass, and you have one-on-one mismatches on the outsides, and one of the tight ends is probably in a one-on-one mismatch as well. So it opens a lot up. That's what I was talking about, run game opening to play action pass. Let's get both the tight ends and Zay and Bateman involved downfield off of that run game. So final game thoughts and score predictions. I think the Ravens win this game decisively. No disrespect to the Raiders at all. I think their D-line, their defense can cause some big problems for our offense and blow some plays up. There's no doubt about it. But I can't see the Raiders offense consistently moving the ball up and down the field on our defense. I think we're really going to make Gardner Minshew uncomfortable. We have an incredible secondary. I really think the Ravens defense can hold the Raiders to under 20 points, and our offense should be able to score much more than that. So I'm going with Ravens win 31-17. I think it could be a little sloppy and close earlier, but the Ravens are going to end up pulling away with this one. I think that they really get Derrick Henry in that ground game going and then use that to hit a couple big plays downfield. I really think that there's going to be some opportunity there for us to have some bigger plays if we can establish a successful run game early and then just run the ball at the end of the game, the whole fourth quarter, just chew up some clock and put this thing away. I think the Ravens should cruise in this one. Let me know your thoughts on this game and your score predictions and how you see this game playing out. I'm excited to watch some Ravens football again. It already feels like it's been way too long of a break since we played on Thursday night. So it'll be nice to get back into that Sunday weekly flow. But that's it for today, guys. I appreciate you tuning in to another episode of the Flock Rundown. As always, have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.